Thanks very much, Rory. I'm hoping, Rory, hoping you can see my slides now.
I could see your presentation, Matt. I can't see you.
Oh, no problem. I maybe just give the tech people a minute to pin.
Oh, they're pinning. Yeah, doing a pin. Fantastic. There you are.
Um, yes, thank you very much. Yeah, like Rory said, I'm Matt. I'm on the staff team at the Scottish Youth Parliament, and I head up our policy and public affairs team. I'm afraid some tech issues have meant that the MSYP that was hoping to join me has not been able to, unless she is literally just on the call. She's in Parliament just now, getting ready for the UNCRC debate, and was hoping to just join for 10 minutes while that was happening, but hasn't been able to. So apologies about that. You'll be stuck with me. But thank you so much for having us along, and to talk a little bit about our youth work and me work, and kind of broader work on youth work funding and this kind of campaigning work that we've been doing, to particularly aiming towards government and ministers in the last year or so. So for those that don't know, very quick intro to SYP. So Scottish Youth Parliament, we're the democratic voice of Scotland's young people. So our vision is of a Scotland that actively listens to and values the meaningful participation of its young people. And our goal is quite simply to make that vision a reality in order to ensure young people in Scotland grow up loved, safe and respected, and are able to realise their full potential. So we provide a national platform for young people to discuss the issues that are important to them and campaign on the changes that they want to see in the nation that they live in. And we're also entirely youth-led. So we have a board of young people, of 8 young people, and they are all members of the Scottish Youth Parliament that lead all of our work. But the reason I wanted to do that little intro is because I think central to this is that we are a youth work organisation. SYP work with youth workers across the country and local authority partners and national voluntary organisation partners to support MSYPs to carry out their work. And SYP staff team is made up of youth workers. We use youth work principles to deliver these activities. So the first key message I guess I want to share from SYP's experience is that youth work is central to upholding the rights of young people. And in the next hour or so, MSPs are going to debate that UNCRC incorporation bill that we've heard about throughout today. And later today, I'm very hopeful we're going to pass it. We've been really clear that's what we want to see. But we can't uphold the rights of the UNCRC without this thriving youth work sector that we need to see. And that needs sustainable long-term funding. And that's the message we've been putting across as best we can in the last year. Youth work is central to Article 12. Youth work is why we exist, and we're an organisation fundamentally based in Article 12. But it's also central to Articles 29, 31, 24. We can go on around education, right to play, right to health, etc. So with that framing, I want to talk a little bit about our Youth Work and Me report. So in 2019, we developed a report called Youth Work and Me, and it looked at the journeys of MSYPs through youth work and asked them what youth work meant to them, why it was important, the changes they would make, and what would happen if there was no youth work in their area. And since that first Youth Work and Me report was published, the lives of young people have really dramatically changed. The past 4 years, we've had global pandemic, disruptions to our education system, increasing concerns about the climate emergency, growing mental health epidemic, cost of living, and we could go on. But throughout this time, youth work across Scotland has continued to deliver that essential support to thousands of young people, despite the increasing funding challenges. So we wanted to repeat this research. So we did so in August of this year, consulting with 86 MSYPs who were at our sitting, which took place in Orkney at the time. And I wanted to just share a few of the findings with you today, and kind of course, share the report in the chat and afterwards as well. The first finding is simply that youth work is important because it gives young people new experiences, skills, support, friendships, opportunities to make change and more confidence. Every MSYP that took part strongly agreed with the statement, youth work changes lives. One young person said this, it's allowed me to grow as a person and feel valued, given me a chance to explore opportunities I would never have dreamed of before. I think that really hits home for me. The next one is that if youth work didn't exist, MSYPs think there would be an increase in loneliness, in isolation, there'd be mental health problems, boredom, crime, antisocial behaviour, more discrimination towards young people. They also think there'd be fewer opportunities, support, confidence, lack of a sense of community, and fewer young people engaged in decision making. To highlight that, one young person said that people they feel lonely without the friendships it brings. Another person said young people would be bored, and when they're bored, they'd get into trouble with the police and their communities. And then the final kind of key finding that we had was that to make a positive difference to youth work in Scotland, MSYPs would like to see more funding and support for youth work to be delivered across Scotland, more opportunities to get involved, improved promotion of opportunities, and better accessibility and inclusion of all young people in youth work settings. So one young person said youth work needs to break institutional and cultural barriers that work against people of colour and minority groups. And another person told us they want to see ensure that youth work services are available to everyone in Scotland with an increased budget to ensure they support every young person that needs it. So that's the kind of research background, if you like, behind some of our work. And I should say the 2019 report had remarkably similar findings, if maybe a little bit less stark. I think that's one of the main thing that's grown here is that the message has just become clearer. So that's why youth work funding has been a real priority for us, because young people have told us it's a priority for them. And we know that to deliver youth work services, we need a sustainable long-term funding solution. I think that's really hit home in some of the conversations today. And we know that cuts to youth work services have made it difficult to continue to deliver high-quality youth work that were needed. And we know that to reverse those cuts, prevent them from happening again, decision makers need to look at this quite differently. I think one of the messages I've taken from today is that youth work spend is good spend, it's preventative spend, and it's value for money. And if we flip the narrative and see youth work as human rights work instead of something that's just nice for young people to do, we start to see those real benefits. And I think that has really hit home with some of the conversations today. 89% of respondents told us that youth work has benefited my health and well-being. To our survey, I think that really hits home as well, seeing youth work not just as a benefit to education and skills, but to so many other elements of a young person's life. So looking at mental health as that example, then youth work gives young people friendships, it gives them trusted adults to speak to, a safe place in their community. One young person in our survey told us it gives me and other young people the opportunity to express ourselves in a non-judgmental environment. And what we know that means is that you're working with young people before they hit crisis point, which at the moment our mental health services that's the point they tend to be dealing with them. So what we said, and we've been quite clear about this in our messaging to decision makers, is that there's some short-term things here, which I think the review that's been talked about today is a positive step towards, but then there's some really long-term stuff that we need to get to grips with quite soon as well. So Molly, as our chair, who's pictured here, has made bringing this to decision makers in Scotland a priority since she was elected last spring. Since then, she's spoken at the First Minister's Anti-Poverty Summit, which is what's pictured here, the annual cabinet meeting that the Scottish Youth Parliament run with the Children's Parliament every year, and the full Scottish cabinet. She also spoke about this alongside an MSYP from the Western Isles at the executive takeover event that we do with the Scottish Government's executive takeover team just a few weeks ago. And so we framed youth work in these conversations around poverty, around education and skills, around mental health. And throughout that message has been really quite clear. Young people need to have a say in what is prioritised in spending, and specifically, young people furthest from their rights need to have that say. As the democratic elected voice of Scotland's young people, we're clear that youth work and youth work funding is a key priority for Scotland's young people, and they've told us that. There needs to be an ongoing dialogue between Scottish Government, local authorities, youth workers and young people to discuss these funding challenges and to work together on sustainable solutions. I hope that this review can be a first step towards that, but we also know that we need to all be in the room together and talk about these things like they are the priority that they are. And finally, we need to work on those longer term funding solutions to ensure that quality youth work service is available and all young people in Scotland, regardless of where they live or their individual circumstances, are able to access it, I should say. And we're not going to get to that point unless decision makers start to recognise that life-changing impact of youth work that we've heard about throughout the day today. I'll wrap up there. Thanks so much for having us along. And yeah, any questions, please do just shout afterwards as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. I suppose I've got one quick follow-up. We heard earlier about the importance of having that youth voice in everything that we're doing, and how keeping them engaged is it's actually the key. Giving them their voice and giving them that agency is key to keeping them engaged, particularly in those older age groups. And what more could we be doing, like as a sector, to help more young people get involved in kind of that decision making aspect?
Yeah, I'd probably highlight a couple of things here. The first is that UNCRC Incorporation is an opportunity to highlight this that we talked about 2.5 years ago when we first thought that was going to happen, but it really is likely to be here now. So I think framing that opportunity that in the next few months we are going to have a spotlight on children and young people's rights that we've not had before. And so that's a real opportunity for us to then speak to children and young people about their rights and start to give that background and understanding. And then the next one is to start local. And I think that's another really kind of key message that we've heard around decision making is it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be at the Scottish Parliament. You know, we can start really, really local here and start to influence decisions in youth work settings. You know, how are young people designing the sessions that they're taking part in? We can start at local councils, at schools, and any of these kind of places are great places where young people can really be involved in decisions that directly affect them and their day-to-day lives. And then hopefully what that builds up to is that we're also doing this kind of national work where decision makers are looking at the laws that they're passing and thinking about how young people are involved in those. But that's not all of what Article 12 is. In fact, Article 12 really does start on the ground and start in those local settings. So that would be my encouragement is yeah, have a look at our own settings and how we can involve young people in designing those, as I know lots of people are already, but also how can we involve young people in those other community spaces that we operate in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.